So next question says, the aggregate demand curve slopes downwards for each of the following reasons except which of the following? Number one, the substitution effect. As the price level falls, people buy more of the cheaper goods and less of the other goods. B says the wealth effect. As the price level falls, the buying power of people's savings increases and induces them to spend more. C says three says the interest rate effect. As prices for outputs rise, it costs more to make the same purchases, driving up the demand for money, raising interest rates, and reducing investment spending. And D says the foreign price effect. As the price level falls, the U.S. becomes more attractive to foreigners and domestic residents, increasing net export spending. This is a great question, I think. It really gets to the crux of the issue of what are reasons why aggregate demand curve is downward sloping. And so what we're going to identify as immediately correct are two, correct as they are reasons, so they're not going to be the right answer to the question, but they are reasons why aggregate demand curve is downward sloping. Two is the wealth effect, and that's definitely one reason it's downward sloping, and I don't think I even have to explain it. I think the answer choice explains it very well by itself. Three, the interest rate effect is also one that is definitely the case. If we take a look at the money supply market graph, this is probably the best way to depict it. So as prices for output rises, it costs more to make the same purchases, which drives up the demand for money. How does it drive up the demand for money, you might ask? Well, if I know that prices are going to be high, then it costs more to make the same purchases. I'm going to hold on to more currency in my basically household because I need more money in my pockets in order to be buying the things I need to buy, and that's going to decrease the money in circulation as you hold that money in the house rather than putting it into depository institutions, and that's going to drive up demand for money, right? As you make sure you want to keep that money high, and that's going to raise interest rates, right? So as the demand for money is going to increase. We get this new interest rate up here, which is an increase from over here. And that is going to reduce investment spending, right? As you have more demand for money by people, and higher interest rates leads to a reduction in investment spending. And that's going to also lead to a reduction in spending. And finally, the foreign price effect. As the price level falls, the U.S. becomes more attractive to foreigners and domestic residents, increasing that export spending. That is, again, another really accurate reason for why the aggregate demand curve will be downward sloping. And so the only thing we see here that is not actually an explanation is a substitution effect, and that is not, this rationale also doesn't even make sense that as price level falls, people buy more cheap goods and less other goods. The aggregate demand curve is a summation of spending on all goods, and so substituting from cheap goods from more expensive goods to cheap goods is not going to affect overall spending levels. So again, substitution effect is not going to be one of those good answer choices for this question, and so that's going to be the right answer here. Aggregate demand curve slopes downwards for each of the following reasons, except for the substitution effect, which states that as the price level falls, people buy more cheap goods and less of the other goods. So let's take a look at the previous tutor's answer. They also pick the substitution effect. As the price level falls, people buy more of the cheaper goods and less of the other goods. Negative slope of an aggregate demand curve is derived from the law of demand that establishes an inverse relationship between the price of a good or service and its quantity demanded. As the price of commodity decreases, the consumer's real purchasing power increases, for they are able to purchase a greater quantity with the same budget. This is known as Pigot's wealth effect that induces people to spend more. Yeah, perfect explanation. At the same time, when there's an increase in price, the transactional demand for money increases as people require more money for purchases. The increased withdrawals of money lead to an increase in interest rates, causing a subsequent increase in the cost of borrowing that adversely affects the level of investment spending. This is known as Keynes' interest rate effect, so that is also correct. A fall in price level also induces foreign buyers as domestic goods become cheaper compared to goods available in the foreign markets. This leads to an increase in export demand, causing a subsequent increase in net exports. This is known as Mundell-Fleming's exchange rate effect. That is all, these three are all good reasons. The downward sloping of the aggregate demand curve, however, cannot be derived from the substitution effect. So I think this is a great answer. Great answer. Very good explanation. And I think that perfectly covers all the explanations for why the other three answers are mechanisms by which aggregate demand is downward sloping and why substitution effect is not a mechanism.